At some point, AI will be able to build those communities in an agentic fashion as well. But for now, rather than thinking about product features, think about distribution and communities.
Would I be able to build an application like that with the current state of tools?
Transactional or credit-based makes the most sense.
From the consumer side, there were interesting arbitrage-alike opportunities back in the days. It's interesting to observe whether these will prevail in the AI era, or we move towards perfect price discrimination.
Vibe coding is insanely draining. It is so draining. I need a break. I need sleep. I need regeneration. My head is burning. My brain is fried. Welcome to another episode of Odyssey, your podcast with Max and
Onur.
Nice.
How's it going?
It's good.
I've heard you've been busy building.
Yeah, the last 2 days I've been building vibe coding, and we have our first product.
What is it called?
It's called PicoJeet, and here's the idea. So every cycle, people round trip billions, millions, whatever amounts of money. And just think of it in simple terms. If we hit Bitcoin all-time high, if we are in the parabola, if we are in the last leg of the cycle, if almost everyone who holds Bitcoin is in profits, the likelihood, statistically speaking, is relatively high that if you sell, or at least DCA out, that you're going to have a chance to buy back cheaper, right? Just think of it this way. If you would have sold Bitcoin in 2017 at 20K, which was the Pico top, let's say like that's hard to hit, but let's say 15K. I think 15K Bitcoin 2017 would have been a target people could have sold. It bottomed at 3K. And let's say you would have not bought at 3K, which is the Pico bottom, but you would have bought at 5K. That means you would have had 3 times the amount of Bitcoin. Next cycle, it hits 65K. Let's say you would have sold at 50K, and then it bottomed to what? 20K? Let's say you would have bought at like 25K. You would have had, again, another 2x the amount of Bitcoin. So I think this is not a trading strategy. It's really more like an investment or portfolio management strategy for when it comes to specifically Bitcoin. To the name suggests, sell the Pico top and buy the Pico bottom. That's the main idea.
That's what we're all after in the end. How did you approach the building process when you came up with the idea, okay, I want to have a better aggregated metric or formula that helps me decide when it's time to buy, when it's time to sell? Right now, obviously more when it's time to sell with the cycle heating up. What were your initial thoughts? How did you approach the entire building process at the get-go?
So 90% of what I do, I use Claude and Anthropic. And recently, Anthropic has released Claude 4.0 Opus. And together with a tool called Claude Code, you can basically spin up your terminal or spin up your IDE, which is your developer environment, and you can start structuring your project. And the way I go about this, without being too scientific, is really, really simple. So I spent the first 2-3 prompts planning my project. I always talk my prompts. I have a tool called Super Whisper, which allows me to speak out my prompts, and it just transcribes them using AI. It's a bit more accurate. And then I say something like, I'd like to work on this project to predict the Bitcoin cycle top and bottom. I would like that project to show some key metrics that have done that in the past. I would like to start from when Bitcoin data was recorded along the lines of like 2013, let's say, which was the first real cycle where things were recorded. I would like to have these type of charts, these type of diagrams, these type of metrics. Can you please create a planning document such that I can develop this project within the next day or two? And then it goes ahead and like creates a massive to-do list. I look at the to-do list and I again talk out loud. I'm like, okay, this is good. This I don't like. That we don't need. Can you add tests? I think a crucial thing we should add to this is more non-traditional metrics such as App Store rankings, right? Like App Store ranking is not on-chain. That's nothing people take into account when they predict the Bitcoin cycle. But I want to know, how does the Phantom or the Coinbase app rank? You know, if it's top 3, that should inform the formula that I'm building, which it does. So we can talk about that in a second. And then I do 2-3 prompts planning. I look at the plan. When the plan looks good, I go to some website that I like the design of. There's plenty of HTML5 template websites or theme websites or landing page curation websites. I pick some that I like, and I say I would like the style to look like this, or like sometimes I paste multiple things and say I want the charts to look like this, but the main website information architecture like that, and I
How
give
do
like
you get
some.
the AI the input? Do you just copy paste the website link, or do you have to download it?
It
Just for
depends,
our
both.
non-technical audience to understand the process.
So Claude Code can fetch websites, so you can just paste the link, but sometimes you have to like download the website literally. Like you can use a tool called httrack if you do it through terminal, or you can just like literally go on Chrome or whatever browser you use, go file, save the website, and it will save the HTML and CSS files, and you can just feed that. I mean, just as inspiration, right? Like I'm not one-to-one copying everything from the website. I just want like roughly the style, and then along the process of building it, I change it anyways. But once I have the planning and once I have like the rough like style of the website, I ask it to implement everything. I literally ask it to, hey, implement everything. I don't even break it down. And it's crazy how much is being one-shotted. People would be amazed how the first version looks. It looks insanely good. The data is wrong. It's mock data. There's like a ton of issues. But again, it's the first prompt and I speak it. So far, I've spent 15 minutes. Maybe a quick side note. Vibe coding, the way I do it, is insanely draining. It is so draining. I need a break. I need sleep. I need regeneration. My head is burning. My brain is fried. And I haven't had that, to be honest, when I was coding a couple years ago. I think coding is more humane to some extent. Like the way I vibe code and the pace everything is moving at. And, I do things in parallel. I have like a couple cursor windows and I do like things in parallel. Maybe that contributes to the brain fry. But generally, like, I do prompt and I give kind of the rough directions. For example, for a web app, what am I going to use? I'm going to use Next.js. I'm going to use Tailwind. I'm going to use TypeScript. I'm going to use like the technologies for web that I know and am familiar with and that I know have some sort of standard. They're not the newest thing in the block, which I would never use with AI because AI doesn't know enough about them or doesn't have enough context about them. I don't want to use like PHP or anything old school because, as I'm building the tool today, I want to have something relatively modern and fresh. So I like dictate the stack a little bit, but not too much. And I have like my favorite icon library. I say, for example, use this icon library for icons in the web project. Those are things I do all the time, which quite increase the quality of the project. Claude 4.0 Opus is insane with like vector graphics generation. So the logo of this project was completely generated by AI, by Claude, the SVG file. And then what I basically do is I look at what it produced, I look at the to-do list, and I go top to down of the project. I start at the top, I look at the metrics, I look at the style. I prompt like 24/7. I prompt, hey, I don't like this. This should look like that. The borders of the cards are too round, make them less round. The color of this chart doesn't work. The text isn't readable. Can you please change this to that? Like I just talk to the AI all the time. I try to not say too many things within a single prompt. For example, when I have a dashboard with 10 cards, I try to do one card at a time, which is 10 prompts. Usually, if I do a proper prompt per card on the dashboard, afterwards it's like 95% there. For this project, I've used Claude Code, and the quality is just insanely good. After I was done, I was like, okay, the project is good, but I want light mode. So I added light mode alongside to dark mode. And I wanted to have a footer, so I added a footer. Then I wanted to have something fun, so I added like the money printer GIF. And then I wanted to like have a reference to Odyssey, which is our project that we're building. So I added like some Odyssey references as a top banner, but also in the footer section. And honestly, like it's been 2 full days, and in 2 full days I've built this tool. It fetches from like 6 different APIs. It's all real data, nothing is static. Everything is being updated dynamically. Maybe there's some issues, we're going to find out in the future, but yeah, so far everything works. I'm very happy with the project. I already updated the Odyssey website also and added this project. I also already like wrote a blog post about it. So yeah, it's ready to be presented to the world.
It sounds pretty exciting what stage we have arrived at with all the AI tools. Maybe to dig a little deeper into the individual inputs, do you have to provide the tools you use with the APIs, with the websites you want to use for APIs? Or is it almost achieving this agentic mode where you just prompt
Agentic.
with your desired output and it looks for everything on its own.
Very agentic. In fact, when I gave it the
Impressive.
APIs I wanted to use, for example, CoinGecko, I hit API limits fairly quick. And I was like, okay, damn, like now I have to look up another API. And I said something like, hey, like I have a $20 a month budget. Can you find me an API where we can get a paid API key and we don't hit these limits? And it actually found an API which is free, where we don't hit limits. And yeah, that was amazing. So it does this, but you have to give some thresholds, right? Like you have to say, I'm looking for an API that can pull these set of metrics that contribute to the dashboard I'm building, which is a cycle top predictor. Please search it online, implement it, write some tests to see if it works, update the dashboard accordingly, and then run the project so I can double check if everything worked. That takes 1 to 2 minutes, and it is truly insane. I'm telling you, it is truly insane, especially Claude Code, the way it like breaks your prompt down into like small to-do lists and it just executes them flawlessly. It's just freaking insane. One thing where you kind of have to have a little bit engineering background is when you run into issues. So when you run into issues, you have to give it context about the issues, right? Some stuff it can read from the terminal automatically, but for other things, you have to, like, for example, go in Chrome, inspect developer mode, copy the output and from console, or you have to like provide some context on the error such that it can fix them. I would say like some developer experience helps, but it's nothing crazy. Like it's literally the only thing, and I could explain it to you, and everything else it does very agentic.
In the building process, have you experienced any differences in the type of tasks that AI does well versus is not doing well? For example, I mean, you spent 2 days on this entire project, and obviously there are different aspects to this. There's the data fetching, the formula output, data interpretation, the entire design stuff. Were you able to already sense in which task areas AI is performing very well versus which it is performing very poorly, and where you have to intervene and
Yeah.
edit a lot?
I have 2 comments on that. So historically, like graphic generation, I would say vector-based graphic generation, generating SVGs, AI wasn't great at. The latest Claude 4.0 release, Opus, is just insane. It's so good. Finally, I can create SVGs. You know, I don't have to. You know, like one pain point of building web projects when you want to integrate like graphics is you have to find an icon library. You have to find like the vector graphics of certain logos or icons and stuff like that. And you know, that just became so much easier when you can work with sane placeholders that the AI can just create, and it will look amazing from the get-go. And then you can maybe put someone else to go get the real vectors or coordinate with the teams to get the brand packages and whatnot, which is always like a pain, which slows down the project a lot. It's gotten pretty good there. It wasn't good before Claude 4.0, I would say. I would say the biggest pain point for me, and by the way, this is complaining at a very high level. I am super happy with how Opus 4.0 Max and Claude Code worked for me here. But one pain point is keeping track of things holistically in the entire app. I'll give you an example. BTC dominance, Bitcoin dominance, is a metric that compares the overall market cap of Bitcoin versus like altcoins, right? And right now it's at 60% range. And, you know, people expect it to go down, which they call altcoin season. So when it goes down to, you know, obviously 60% of the market cap of overall crypto would be altcoins, which means either Bitcoin needs to go down, which it doesn't really mean. It mainly means Bitcoin chills and goes sideways and altcoins go ballistic, right? So that's a metric, BTC dominance. I have that in like 2-3 places in the app. And sometimes when I update it, it only updates it at one place. And I wish it would automatically more seamlessly understand, hey, I've been using this at 3 different places. While I update it here, abstract the logic and update it everywhere automatically. It does abstract the logic when I tell it to, but sometimes it struggles to doing that right away, right? So that's the exact example I faced. I had Bitcoin dominance, the value it pulled from somewhere was wrong. I fixed it. I scrolled down in the app. I had another Bitcoin dominance chart, and I was like, hey, wait a minute, it's wrong again here. I just fixed it at the other place. Why didn't it fix it here again as well? So I spent one more prompt, and then it realized, oh, you're right. We could apply the same fix here. Let me actually combine the logic so it only uses the logic once and updates it at both places. So it did the fix like I wanted it to do, but you know, those are the hiccups that still exist.
in the end, you were able to fix all of these problems just by verbal or written input. You didn't have to give it any technical directions.
Technical directions, yes, but I did not write a single line of code. I did not look at a single line of code. I mean, I looked obviously at the code it produced just to do like sanity checks. But when I use my IDE, my cursor, I don't look at the file system. I don't look at the files or the code it produces. I only have the Claude node in front of me and the terminal. And the terminal runs the app, and I see the output of the web app, and Claude does prompting and everything. Whatever it produces, I see highlights of the files as it changes the files, but I don't constantly monitor them, right? Which for certain apps, I wouldn't do it like that. Like if there's more a security conscious app where I'm asking for user information, I'm asking for a wallet to be connected, I'm asking for financial information or anything of that kind. If not me, someone has to audit that code and look into it, right? For a project like this, which is read only, which just pulls data from open APIs, where I don't even use custom API keys. I literally use like all the free APIs that are available. If I hit a rate limit, I hit a rate limit. I don't even like do anything. I have like a backup, a fallback for that, just to use like cached values. But for a project like that, I didn't really do much security auditing here. So I did not look much at the code. I just prompted when things weren't correct and it fixed them automatically.
Would you say that at the current state of AI and for this type of project that somebody who is absolutely non-technical, has never written a line of code, assume that I, during my intro to Python course back in the uni days before all of AI, I didn't do anything myself. I just had a friend who had, by coincidence, access to all the answers and solutions. So I forgot everything that we covered in that course. Would I be able to build an application like that with the current state of tools?
Yes, easily.
How long do you think it would take me versus you?
That's a difficult question because I think the reason why I am maybe a little bit faster than you isn't necessarily my technical skill set. Because ironically, I feel like I'm much faster than most engineers too. And engineers are much more technical than me, right? I feel like I am in the sweet spot where I have a clear product understanding, but I know enough technicals about the architecture. I would tell it if we need a database and I would exactly know what to use, right? I would say, hey, please use Postgres. I want to host it on Supabase. Don't use anything else. Keep it stupid simple. Or, design this API, a REST API with these endpoints. These are the collections. These are the detail items. That helps. But that's not really engineering skill. It's more product or architecture understanding. So to answer your question, if you've never used it, I would say it will probably take you a week.
What skills do you think matter the most right now? We've covered the technical aspects where your claim is that it almost doesn't matter anymore as long as it's not a super complex application or project you're building on.
Yeah.
Then you have the experience in product design, product management, how is a good product supposed to look? And then I would argue there is the domain expertise. So is it helpful or necessary that you have very specific expertise about the niche you're building your product in? For example, the PicoJeet, would an experienced Bitcoin trader have an actual edge, or is the AI already capable of you just giving it the desired output and it reverse engineers the necessary inputs in terms of metrics? And is it already able to interpret and put these metrics into context?
A Bitcoin trader would definitely have an edge, but there's another skill set, which is a sense for digital products, a sense for aesthetics, for design, making things that look good, that don't look shitty and ugly. And I think the Bitcoin trader 100% would have an edge when it comes to the on-chain metrics. But whether they have a good sense for product design, for charting, for information architecture, I don't know. That's like
Arguably
individual.
not, because we're all pretty
It depends. It depends. But when it comes to the on-chain metric edge, and they're, for example, actively pursuing a strategy which has worked for them, if you just instruct the AI to do something, it will do something, but it will most likely not do the exact thing that you're doing. So you could describe the process you're doing, outline the metrics you're using, and then it will be able to incorporate that much better into the product. and that it wouldn't one shot, that it wouldn't do by default. So those things you have to deliberately, I mean, you can always say something like build a cycle top predictor, research yourself what metrics make sense, and just propose something. You can do that. And to be honest with you, it's pretty damn good. It's like insanely good. But then when it produces something, you say, okay, but what about like Nupal score? What about the MVRV ratio? What about like the fear and greed indicator? I also want to know the Coinbase rank in the App Store. There's certain things it maybe does not one shot or it does not suggest, so you add those later down the road. But let's be honest, all of this is a giant crystal ball anyways. This shouldn't be financial advice. This is just like we're trying to like approximate some cycle patterns. So I think it's not that important at the end of the day, but I'm actually pretty confident that we can improve this tool over time and get to a point where like even if we're 70-80% right and we don't hit the exact tops or bottoms, but we're like getting into the zones, that's insane. That's like in the coming 5 cycles 100x maybe. So yeah, anyways, I'm getting too excited.
On the distribution side, do you think that anything changes compared to past Web 2 products?
Distribution of this product itself?
Yes, and generally distribution for products built with AI, given that before you had to have a lot of human resources and mental capacity for the building process for product and all of these functions that contribute to just create the product. To me, it feels that now AI makes all of these functions a lot easier, a lot more efficient. So in proportion, the distribution function and the marketing and the monetization function likely grows in importance. Do you see any impacts on that?
No, I don't really make the link between building with AI and distribution. But let me say this. Distribution has always been more important than the product. There has been this famous saying, first time founders think about product, second time founders think about distribution. Distribution is always much more important. Like, how do you get this in front of the users? How does this get eyeballs? Ideally, it doesn't come from marketing. Ideally, it comes from the product itself. Think something like a Notion page or a GitHub repo that you share. If others want to collaborate, they have to use the product so it distributes itself. That's the best type of distribution. Another form of distribution is you integrate with partners and the partners co-market it with you and it gets a multiplying effect where it gets to more eyeballs. But that's marketing distribution. It's also good, but I think product distribution is the best. So regardless of how you build your product, distribution will always be more important. The thing here is I mainly built this for myself. And if others find it helpful and give feedback, that's amazing. But there's no monetization for this product. It's really just if it works, it will get more eyeballs. And then we can think about, okay, is there maybe another iteration of this product? Do we make this a trading product in the future? Do we add a trading desk or a trading type of functionality where you cannot just look at the chart, but actually act on it? And then the next step would be automated, blah, blah, blah. Those are all things that you could do. Or as simple as slap ads on it. I wouldn't do that. I don't want to do that. I quite frankly hate ads. And that type of internet I'm just against that type of internet. Long story short, distribution is very important. I don't think the importance of distribution changes in the era of AI, if at all, because of the lowering production costs of products and us probably seeing more and more AI built products in the future. If at all, it gets even more important. But I think distribution has always been very important.
Do you think that anything in the monetization vehicles will change? I mean, back in the days, you had a lot of advertisements that now may become a little less relevant because instead of search engines where you're looking for products, you just input the desired outcomes, the aspects of a product you care about into your AI tool and it spits that stuff out. So traditional advertising may become proportionally less relevant. Then you've had a lot of subscription models in the Web 2 era, in the software as a service era. Now we are seeing, at least what I feel like, more products that have a credit-based or
Exactly.
user-based monetization. Do you think that any of that is going to change, or depending on what product you'd build now in the intersection of AI and crypto, how would you go about monetizing these?
Transactional or credit based makes the most sense. I think the SaaS era didn't make sense. Like the SaaS era is like a gym membership. You pay for it, you don't go to it. It works, but it's like not great. Buying a license before that, like, you know, buying like Microsoft Windows or Office, paying hundreds of bucks for 1-2 years, I also think doesn't work. I think kind of microtransactions or credits just make the most sense, right? I would add minimum limits to that. So for example, you have to load up at least $5 to $10. So I don't want to add 50 cents to my account. The Visa Master costs are probably higher than that. So something like that, something like a minimum where you add credits. And then based on usage, you just burn the credits and you have good margins for the tool creator on the credits. If you build a crypto tool, I mean, look at Axiom, for example. They made 100 million in the last couple of months just from trading fees. So I think the fee model, taking a percent cut of the fee model, if you enhance the trading experience, which people are willing to pay, is a great model. People don't need to pay an additional $100 a month for that. When you have these like data aggregators, it looks a bit different, right? When you have these Nansens or Dunes of the world where they index a ton of data and you need to access them, I think for them, subscription-based probably makes more sense, because otherwise you could just load up some credits, do an initial query once, pull all the data that you need, and then never query again, or only update once a day, which is going to be very cheap. So that's a bit more difficult. But for trading apps, I think transactional based on every like trading transaction is very straightforward.
Yeah, I think the route to perfect price discrimination makes a lot of sense from the firm or company perspective. From the consumer point of view, there were some models and some opportunities in the Web2 SaaS era, not necessarily B2B, but also B2C, where you could get a pretty sweet deal. Let's take something like Spotify. If you're a really active Spotify listener, you're listening to music all day, all night, the $9.99 or whatever it currently is Spotify premium subscription is a pretty sweet deal to you.
Mhm.
You got a very good deal. Then on the other hand, the company Spotify could rake in a lot of revenues from people with lower usage, where they got much more revenue than what they would have to expend in marginal costs. Take some boomer generation people who have much more money than students who listen to much more music. They're just annoyed by the ads. They want to get rid of them. They're happy to pay the $9.99 a month because they don't really care, but they listen to music half an hour a week at max. Similar with gym memberships. I mean, most gyms have 50% or upwards of people who rarely ever go there, but they pay their
If at
monthly
all.
fees.
I
Yeah,
think
and
50% is optimistic.
probably. I mean, it kind of depends on what gym chain you're looking at,
Sure.
but gym equipment, pretty expensive. Gym machines are pretty expensive, depending on the location. Rent is also high. You also have maintenance costs, especially if you have like a spa area or something like that. You have a lot of personnel expenses too. So if you have a lot of these people who pay just to feel good because, yeah, I have a gym membership, but they never go, that kind of subsidizes all the people who want to use it a lot. For example, the entire student cohort, which is much more active because they don't actually study. They prefer going to the gym, but they don't have money. So they even get a cheaper rate despite going to the gym 10 times more than all the old people do. So from the consumer side, there were some interesting arbitrage alike opportunities back in the days. It's going to be interesting to observe whether these will prevail in the AI era or whether we move towards a state of almost perfect price discrimination where everybody gets charged the price they're willing to pay.
Interesting point. I haven't thought too much about it, but I think generally what you were saying, that people usually will pay what they're willing to pay, makes the most sense. That to me implies though that they may use different products. I mean, this has always been the case. Someone gave a great example the other day. It's something along the lines of the same exact work in a different market where you have a different leverage could cost like $10. It could cost $100. It could cost $1 million. And the value you're getting may not be significantly different, but it is in the eye of the beholder. Like if you see the different nuances that are worth it to you, or the entire experience that makes it worth it to you, you will pay it. Like if $1 million isn't much for you, it doesn't matter. You will pay it because you're getting the value out of it. I think it'll be similar. Coming to the AI era, the only thing that changes is generally costs will go down. Producing these things costs less and less. And I think at some point, the competition will be under price pressure, right? And if you can build an equal experience for a fraction of the costs, you can outcompete people on costs. That's why I'm more bullish on things that are really hard to outcompete over the long term, such as community. If a product or a service has a community of real people all over the world connecting, doing something together with network effects, that's going to be the hardest thing to reproduce for AI. At some point, AI will be able to build those communities in an agentic fashion as well. But for now, rather than thinking about product features, I would think about distribution and communities and how I can make those better. Price-wise, naturally things have to come down, in my opinion.
I fully agree on that on the side of digital products, but in our bubbles, we are prone to overestimate how relevant digital products are and how much they will grow. Because yes, if we just let the current trends of consumerism continue as they are, I guess there's still more growth for digital products to capture. However, if we get to the state where digital products stall in growth, where AI gets to a point where it is agentic enough that it can solve many of these industry internal problems. Last episode, we hinted on the software as a service circle jerk, where one of them is just solving a problem another one creates. If we're able to cancel this entire circle out with one really good AI tool, we will see a very healthy and very necessary correction in the overall market of digital products. And if we put the improvements in quality of life at the peak of what the economy should serve as a tool for, in theory, we should see much more growth in real world physical products and offerings again, because that is what has been neglected a lot over the past 20 to 30 years, ever since the internet has taken hold in our lives. I mean, the food production, health, biotechnology, of course, there's progress happening there, but relative to the progress and the devotion of resources we are seeing in the digital space, I think it is almost nothing.
I do agree. I do fully agree with you.
Yeah, excited times we're heading towards.
Should we jump into the product and demo?
I think we should. Let's look into the actual metrics there. Would you mind sharing the screen?
All right, so let's look at the product. What do we have? As we said, it's an Odyssey project. There's a banner you can click on to get to the main Odyssey project page. The project is called PicoJeet, and the idea is that you sell the Pico top of the cycle. We have light mode implemented. This was a one-shot. Like, I haven't done anything for that other than prompting it. And then we have our first couple of metrics. So let's go through them. So Bitcoin price, I think, should be clear to everyone. It's just the current price of Bitcoin, $105,000. We have BTC dominance, which is basically considering the overall crypto market cap, how much of that is denominated by Bitcoin. It's called BTC dominance. Bitcoin is always king. Right now it's 61%. At the top, when Bitcoin runs, this goes up to 80, even 90%, at least previously. And when there's altcoin season, it goes down to like 40, 45%. So it doesn't mean that history is going to repeat itself, but that's how it's been historically. NUPL is interesting. It's basically net unrealized profit and loss. And this basically means the difference between realized profit and loss across all Bitcoin holders. So the closer this gets to 1, the more Bitcoin holders will be in actual profits. So if Bitcoin hits, I don't know, like 120,000, I think this is going to be like 0.8, 0.99 or something like that, which the closer it gets to 1, the higher of a sell signal it is. SOPR, it's basically spent output profit ratio. So this basically looks at what's the profit ratio on chain? How many people are selling at a loss versus selling at a profit? If it's at 1, it's break-even selling. If it's under 1, people sell it at a loss. And if it's between 1.05 and 1.1, it's profit taking. That's already, bull market vibes, like be careful. And if it's above 1.115, that means like excessive profit taking. Everyone is taking profits. That's like peak warning. So again, another indicator you can use. MVRV score is a little bit more complicated, but this is like, how far does the market value of Bitcoin deviate from the realized value? So what people actually paid, whether it is through buying or through mining. Mining has always historically been an interesting indicator with all of these metrics, because you can produce Bitcoin, you have production costs associated with Bitcoin also, or you just have the market price at which you can buy it. But for MVRV, the idea is that, if it's below 1, buying opportunity. If it's 1 to 3, that's accumulation zone, nothing crazy, which it is there right now. It is potentially coming out of that zone. 3 to 5 is presumed neutral. 5 to 7 is overvalued profit taking. So it's probably, for me, it's the single most important value to look at this cycle when it comes to Bitcoin. I think above 5, I would DCA out no matter what. Maybe even at 4. Again, the idea is not to try to sell the Pico top exactly, even though the tool suggests that. The idea is to start making sensible DCAing moves. Rainbow band, while we did not copy Rainbow 1-to-1, everyone knows Rainbow with the different bands. On the top, you have red, orange, which is, oh my God, everything is overvalued, euphoria, sell. On the bottom, you have the blue band. Now they also added the purple or indigo band, which means fire sale, everything's undervalued, buy. Right now we're kind of in the green zone, if people know what that means, which means accumulate, nothing crazy. We have a fear and greed index, which is a specific index I pull from an API that indicates where it's 60. So it's also healthy. We have the Pi cycle top, which is moving average, I think 111 days, if I'm not mistaken. And if you calculate the ratio of two numbers, the closer you get to pi, which is 3.14 something, the closer it indicates a peak. So it's a metric people came up with historically.
But it's kind of a multiplier between moving averages to get to the pi number, right?
Sorry, say that again?
The pi cycle indicator, doesn't it take the multiple between two different moving averages to get to the result, or?
Exactly. So the pi cycle indicator is basically taking the 350 moving average, 350 days, and 111 days. All right. RHODL, another metric I just pulled directly from an API, and Coinbase rank from the App Store US. So this is something that most of these tools don't have, but I want to have it. So I'm going to extend that in the future. But what I want to do is I want to look at Phantom app, Coinbase app, Moonshot app, maybe Uniswap or Pump app. Look at all the rankings for these apps. And the moment Coinbase is a top 3 app is probably also the moment your cousins, your family members, your colleagues, and your uncles and aunts are writing you or calling you what to buy. Strong peak signal, right? So I think watching the Coinbase rank or Phantom rank is also very, very important here. Then we take all of these metrics and we build our own prediction out of these. I don't want to dive too much into the math, because this type of exercise is like, who's the least wrong? Like no one gets this right. Some people say Bitcoin is going to go to 250, 300K. The tool we've produced with the historic data we've analyzed, looking at the halving, looking at the 12 to 18 months post-halving peaks, looking at the ratios of the peaks compared to previous all-time highs, it tells us we're gonna peak somewhere along the lines of November at somewhere along the lines of 170K. Actually, right now it says 171,000.
Did it get to this result completely on its own? Or did you give it some input, some weighting of the metrics that were based on your personal opinion?
I did give it some direction. What I told it was, don't use any static values. Everything has to be calculated, dynamic, and update based on new metrics coming in. For example, if Bitcoin hits 200K and it doesn't go down, this number needs to change dynamically because obviously the old target doesn't make any sense anymore. So it does update automatically. What I did tell it though is look at the halving and the rainbow chart and previously how the peaks have always occurred 17, 18 months post halving. Where would this give us in this case if we are 13 months in and we maybe have 5 more months left in the cycle, right? I gave it this type of input, but then I left it enough room to create its own algorithm. The reason why I don't want to dive into the algorithm is I've built this in 2 days. There's no way I can defend the algorithm here, and I don't think it makes sense. However, I do want to play around and iterate with the algorithm over time, over cycles potentially even. And if our prediction is good, which time will tell, we can even go a step further and talk about our algorithm, make it more public, maybe do a small paper about it. I think at this point, it's literally just a formula that combines a bunch of different metrics. So there's no science to it other than it's only like sane defaults that I prompted, and I told it to come up with an own proprietary metric without using any fake values. But as you can see, like even if Bitcoin goes to 300K, if you sell at 160, 170, and you buy back, let's say it doesn't go back down to what that does it predict here, 68,000. Let's say it doesn't go down to 68,000, but it goes down to, I don't know, 100,000 or maybe 80,000, which I think it will. That's a great rebalance and portfolio manage. That's all we want. Like we just want to add Bitcoin. That's all. Like you start with 1 and in a couple of years you end with 10, and that's totally possible. So that's the goal here. Again, we're 13 months into the halving, which is one of the most important indicators historically. Then we have the Bitcoin dominance chart. As you can see, like here, okay, I can't hover here, but when Bitcoin runs and peaks and goes to all-time high, this goes extremely high, easily 70, 80%. It's important because one strategy could be expose yourself more to Bitcoin. When you think Bitcoin is going to run, just hold Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin hits all-time high and there's no more gas in the tank, take a small percentage and deploy it into the narrative of the cycle, which could be memes, which could be alts. I don't know. I don't want to give investment advice, but
that's kind of where we have already been at this cycle. Right now, it's sitting at 64%. Last cycle's peak, before we've seen the big all season of 21, it reached 73%.
Yes.
The cycle before, it was somewhere in the 80s. So
look at this.
Betting on BTCD reaching above 70 again this cycle would be kind of far-fetched. Like personally, I would assume that the trend is holding true, that it is declining slightly by a couple of percent every cycle.
So that's what I've tried to do here. I looked at previous cycles, mainly 2017, 18, 2020, 2021. 2017 dominance was 87%, dropped to 33. 2020, 2021 dominance was 71%, dropped to 46. I think, like you said, it will be less and less every cycle. So dominance may be 65, 67%, and then it will drop to 50%. Current cycle, the dominance is moderately high. Things are set up for an alt season, although I'm not bullish on alts. I'm bullish on memes and very, very few selected altcoins. Only hyper liquid, to be honest, and maybe one or two others that I don't even want to name. But yeah, so you know what happens. Like BTC season, money flowing into Bitcoin, alts bleeding, and the other way around, money is rotating. This time it's a bit different. We have a lot of institutions in Bitcoin. They will not rotate into alts, especially not in an era of overproduction of alts. All right. Then, now it gets a bit more detailed. I don't want to bore people with too much detail here. You can look up the product for yourself. We wrote a blog post about it. Feel free to check out the blog post. We're going to link to it in the show notes. It explains the formula a little bit more, as well as like the metrics we've taken into account. It also talks about the stack we've used. Like I said, Next.js, TypeScript, React, Recharts, API integrations, the AI process we've used, and so on and so forth. And you can look at the more detailed metrics here, like Nupal, Super, MVRV, and what they mean, how you can interpret them, what the historical context is. Again, don't reason purely by analogy. Just because historically it peaked at 4.8 doesn't mean it will peak at 4.8 again here. Maybe it will only go to 3.7 this time. We don't know. But like, take all of this into account. We have the rainbow bands. We're currently in cell territory, apparently. No, that can't be true. I need to fix that. I think there's a small issue here. I think we're more in distribute territory. I think it's like hold or distribute territory. So I need to fix that a little bit. But it also, again, gives a lot of like historic context on the timing of Rainbow and the current bands. Fear and greed index is pretty straightforward. It's like slightly biased towards greed. Pi cycle, as you can see, we're 2.7. You want to sell at 3.14. So we still have like some room. Our hodl, I'm not going to dive into that metric. In healthy zones still. And then we have the App Store rankings, which I'm going to work on. So I have a version. It's not perfect. That's why I kind of like didn't release it with this version. But this is already correct. So we're already pulling the Coinbase rank here. Coinbase is number 24 in the App Store US finance category. I need a more robust version for Google Play, for Apple, for global and finance, for other categories. Some wallets, I think, are in other categories other than finance as well. Phantom Wallet is an important one. It's actually ranked much higher than Coinbase right now, I think. So need to do some tweaking here, but this is something I'm probably going to follow up with next week. And that's it. You see all the APIs we are using here. I've built like a small indicator. We use like Google Play, App Store, BGeo API for Bitcoin metrics, a Fear Greed Indicator API, Coin Paprika, CoinGecko. I use multiple because sometimes we hit rate limits as we only use the free APIs for these. That's why I'm using multiple. But I have to say, it works pretty well so far. I'm pretty happy with the results so far.
Have you incurred any costs building this tool?
Yes. Guess, please.
The APIs are free. I would assume that not all of the newest AI vibe coding tools are free. Maybe these are $20-$30 a month. Let's account for one subscription there. Let's say $30. You've generated all the graphics yourself. You didn't need any designer for that. Can't think of anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Claude Code Max subscription, which costs $100 a month. And then you can take 2 days of that. So assume a month has 20 working days. 1 working day is $5. 2 days is $10. Additionally, because I hit limits, even with the Claude Max subscription, you can hit limits and then it gives you like a time you can continue at. I switched to the API. I've probably spent another $5 there. So in total, I would say this app has cost me $15, 1.5.
But you would have not been able to code it without the Claude Code Pro Max subscription, right?
No, I could have used Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever with Cursor, but I think the results wouldn't have been as good and as fast. I think it would have taken me more time and it would have been much more annoying. Like, this was a very pleasant process. I usually get annoyed vibe coding because I bump into issues. And again, like, I don't do the traditional engineering workflow where I go into the code and debug stuff. I try to prompt everything. And it was a very seamless experience.
Are you switching around a lot between AI tools?
Yes.
What's the pace of updates that you've seen over the last couple of weeks and months?
It's insane. Claude Code and Claude Opus 4.0 is very recent. It's been only out for a week or so. And I tried it like 3 days ago. And I was like, oh, wow.
To adapt and to change over? Like, are the switching costs high?
No, they're very low. It's literally one YouTube video.
Pretty cool. What a time to be alive, huh?
What a time to be alive. No, like, coming back to the Odyssey philosophy and initiative, regardless of the actual product, which I'm pretty happy with. Give it a look, give some feedback, let us know what you think. If there's stuff that's wrong, we're going to fix it over time. That's not a problem. We want to get extremely good with these tools, and we want to build them in public, and we want to lead by example on how to utilize AI tools to build actual products with real-time data, real-world data, with real users in very little time. Again, 2 days is fine. If this would have taken me 2 weeks, for the product it produced, I would say it's too much. It's some random data. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. People are going to look at it every now and then. Of course, there's potential to do more, but it would have felt wrong. 2 days, I think no one can argue that this was too much work for this tool, right? We're familiarizing ourselves with AI and the technology we're using. Like next time I'm going to prompt, I already know some of the pitfalls. I'm going to be even better. So I think for that alone, it was worth it. And again, $15 for a tool like this, which we can have online forever. And by the way, there's no hosting costs, right? Like all is on free tiers of like Outflare, Versal, GitHub. There's no hosting costs. So yeah, overall, very cost efficient project.
Age of abundance.
Correct.
Sounds pretty cool. I think that's a great start into the product journey of Odyssey. Do you already want to tease what we are working on next?
I do want to tease. We're working on Nemesis, which is a liquid fund, which you are actually mainly working on. So I think one thing we should do after this is introduce you to some of the vibe coding tools in Claude, maybe even if it's like a simple website or graphics or maybe a Telegram bot you can build to track the liquid portfolio. I think that would be amazing. And another product I'm working on, which is similar but a bit more detailed, is a trading analytics tool, basically. So I want to build a tool that tracks certain positions on Solana, mainly on Jupiter. Think of people use the limit order, now it's called trigger, I think, or if they use the DCA order, now it's called recurring. You see like whales exiting big positions, for example, they're selling like 200k of Jupe into Housecoin, or they're selling 100k of Fartcoin into Mudang. I want to build a dashboard around that type of data and provide like rich trading analytics beyond just like the transactional data you see on Dex Screener or the basic stuff you see on GMGN or Axiom. So some more insights of more like whale movement type of data.
I think that would be interesting for Hyperliquid too. If there was a way to automatically scrape and filter out the most profitable wallets percentage-wise, and then have an aggregated score of what coins were currently long or short.
Have you seen James win?
Yeah.
Liquidated for 100 million.
Yeah, and I've never seen James Wynn and you in the same room before.
No. But he's back in the casino. He, I think, now just longed 50 million worth of BTC. I have a lot of thoughts. I think it's not the most credible person in crypto, let's put it this way. The affiliation with some projects in the past and the way certain things were done, and the trace and connection of wallets to Moonpig and how things were sold, allegedly not his wallets. I don't think anyone believes that. There's a lot of sketchy stuff there. I'm not even sure if it's a single person, to be honest. Like, it looks like a syndicate to me.
As a single person to just straight out round trip 80 million in profits is hard to imagine. Usually when you have people with this size, they have some hedging strategy or whatever, and they're just not naked long or naked short these sums, especially not in public. Yeah. I would assume that there's more to the James Wynn story, especially if it's a syndicate behind there, or some sort of group. It's weird nevertheless, but it's interesting to follow along. No crying in the casino.
No crying in the casino. Staying in 8-figure hell. Let's see how that goes.
Terrible.
All right, Max. This was a fun one. Looking forward to build more stuff as part of Odyssey, not just yapping. Yapping is cool too. We're gonna yap a lot, hopefully with some others too. But building stuff also was really, really fun.
Absolutely.
See you next time.
See you next week.